We are here for a 5 p.m. agendized meeting to have a public meeting on the proposed 2014 budget. And we want to welcome everybody here. We'll have the first thing we'll do, I think, is handle the Canyon County Ambulance District, and then we'll move in a separate budget, and then we'll move into the Canyon County proposed and published budget. So I'm looking for Greg Owen. There he is. Greg, your budget is on the screen. If you would take time and go through this with us, please.
Thank you, Commissioners. What you see on the screen, and can everyone see that? All right. The FY2014 budget that we're asking for is, first of all, is only a 0.23% total increase in our budget from last year. So starting with the A budget, salaries, the Commissioners did approve a 4% pool for our salaries, and those of you that are playing along will notice that says 6.35 and not 4%. The reason is that we also have added 2 positions to our staff, our field staff. So that's why it's greater than 4%. Under benefits, you can see that they went up modestly. We are projected a 10% increase in our medical health insurance premiums, and that is reflected there. So the total A budget is $4,974,923 for an overall increase in A budget of 5.61%. Are there any questions on the A budget? Okay, we'll move on to the B budget. Capital expenses, we have purchases and leases. You can see that the purchases have decreased. That's primarily because the decrease is because we finished our new admin building last year. So there were monies in 13 to finish that project. So that has decreased quite a bit. The leases are increasing. We're acquiring 2 new ambulances, and those will be done through a lease purchase program, and that increased our lease amount by roughly $100,000 a year. Also in the purchases, we are purchasing new stretchers for the ambulances that are electric. They raise and lower rather than our folks lifting them, as well as they will lift in a power or load into the ambulance in a power load mode. So it's the ones that we have reached the end of their service life. They're not supported by the manufacturer anymore. And from the health and safety standpoint, I feel that these stretchers are vitally important to our folks. We have one employee who had a $90,000 back injury, and it doesn't take long to pay for those stretchers with that kind of expense. So. Bad debt. It's not just bad debt, but it's also contractual write-offs. 50% of our patients are Medicare and or Medicaid, and we are required by the government to accept what they say they'll pay as payment in full. So those are reflected in our budget as bad debt, and that has been at about $3 million for the last several years. Looking down through here as well, the telephones, at the time that we built our building, or did last year's budget, we did not know what the total ongoing costs of our telephone system would be. So that's why you see a 42% increase. We have the true number now That's not just telephones, it's T1 lines, it's our internet service, the whole package for our admin building and our 7 stations. Fuel, we feel that we can stay about the same. We put in a rather large number last year because of the volatility of fuel prices. We found that number should work for us in the coming year unless fuel prices go up to $5 a gallon. So we're spending between $5,000 and $6,000 every 2 weeks for fuel. So the total B budget is $4,626,353. It's a decrease of almost 5%. So our total A budget, we mentioned before, you can see the B budget there. The total budget is $9,601,276, and that does reflect a 0.23% increase. On the revenue side, our non-tax revenue, which is everything other than property taxes, is decreasing about 2%. And then our tax revenue is the same as last year. So for the last 4 years, we have not taken a tax increase. When available, we have not taken the new construction growth either. So we've been able to hold the line on property taxes, and we're pleased to be able to do that. So if you add those two together, our total revenue is $11,841,000, and the remaining fund balance, we will use about $250,000 from the fund balance to make some of those capital purchases. It will decrease 10% to $2,240,000. So that is all I have, Commissioners.
Greg, I've got one question for you.
Yes.
I want to know how many miles or what year the vehicles are you replacing?
Well, the vehicles we're replacing, if you recall, we do remount those vehicles. So the boxes that we're replacing are from 1995 and 1996.
Thank you. Board, any questions? This is a public meeting. If there's a question from the public to Greg Owen, now would be the time to come forward. Looks like you're skating, Greg. You're good to go.
And you have the resolution there, Commissioner, in front of you for our budget.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we accept and sign the resolution that was considered and adopted by the Kane County Board of Ambulance District Commissioners on the 28th day of August 2013. And approve this budget.
I'll second the motion.
Motion is second to approve the ambulance budget for 2014. All those in favor loudly say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That's an unanimous vote across the board. We'll sign that resolution right now. Thank you very much, Greg. We appreciate all you do for our communities. Got it. Thank you very much, Monica. Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to move forward with the county budget at this time. We will, the budget was published as required by law on the correct time frames, and there are copies, or there were copies available. If there are not enough, we can arrange to get more. I think before we take public comment and open this meeting up, I think it's important that we make the public aware of some changes this year in particular. And let's see, I'm in my 7th year as a commissioner, and Kathy, you're in your 5th, and Craig's pretty new to the process. So I remember when I was a baby commissioner, is a term used around here. You're new and getting started. The budget process was somewhat foreign to us. Craig had an advantage. He had been in the system and understood how the budget worked. So he had a little step up on most commissioners, and that's a good thing. But the way the budget would move forward would the controller or the clerk or both would bring it down to the commissioners, and that's after each department has submitted their budget requests. And then it would be kind of molded into the county budget with possible, if requests were too high, a commissioner, a clerk, a controller would simply make cuts and bring it down to where we would fit the dollars available to the county through property taxes and revenues. That was critical. For the past several years, as you all know, the revenues had decreased from property taxes. And so we made up to nearly $20 million of cuts in the past several years. This year's a little different. Revenues are up a little bit. Values are coming back. There's some monies coming in due to the stimulus of the economy. But the actual process changed a little bit in that this year the commissioners met openly and on record and discussed line upon line each budget request of each department. And we invited Zach Wagner, the controller, to come in. And so no one person affected the budget without the other two commissioners and the controller knew about it. And that's how we went through the budget. And for as long as I've been here, it's never been done that way, recorded, so the public can go back and hear, why did this department get this money? Why did this fund get that much money? Why did this request get granted, or why did it get cut? So it's our efforts as a board to become more transparent to the public and make this process open, and there can be it makes it very difficult for one powerful personality to make modifications on a budget. And I'm going to tell you that happened in the past years, and I think it eliminated a lot of that kind of budgeting process this year. So we're real proud of that. Let's see, I think there was, let's see, commissioners, do you have anything to add to that? Commissioner Hanson or Commissioner Elder?
Not really.
Okay, we're going to move forward then. Monica's got shopping to do. She told me to please move through this quickly. So I'm on my way. All right. Let's see. Commissioners, what's your pleasure? We have some public, some people signed up to address the board. Do you want to go through the budget or let them address it, let the public address us first?
Mr. Chair, I think we should go through the budget first so that we know what we're talking about.
Okay, very good. Let's see. We're going to get Zach fired up here. And Zach, you want to take us through this year's budget, please?
You bet. First off, I'd like to acknowledge and recognize the board and the elected officials and department administrators of Canyon County for the tremendous amount of time, effort, energy, and talent that went into this budget. There are some significant changes from last year's budget, and I appreciate the efforts of all parties involved. The budget process begins in April and culminates here tonight on August 28th. A tremendous amount of time has gone into it. In April, we are only halfway through our fiscal year 2015. We're still waiting for the second half of property tax to come in. We're still waiting for large payments from the state for sales tax and other revenue. And as we have progressed since April, the results of our actual revenue have been outstanding. Our sales tax revenue has increased. Our revenue from our motor vehicles department has increased. Our revenue from development services is up. Our recording fees have increased. We have seen an across-the-board increase in county revenue, and that is good news for all of us. We entered fiscal year 2013 in a strong financial position, and that position has only gotten stronger as we have progressed through 2013. And as I've taken a close look at revenues for 2013 compared to what was anticipated or budgeted, we are on track to bring in between $3 and $4 million above what was budgeted on the revenue side. That's a great thing. And a proposal was presented to the board this week to take that $3 million of excess revenue and split it to provide relief to the taxpayers of Canyon County to the tune of $1.5 million. Immediate relief to taxpayers by reducing the 2014 property tax budget $1.5 million. Second, our greatest asset is our employees, our human capital. The employees are the ones that make things happen around here. This is a service-oriented industry, and I appreciate what the employees do for us, and a large part of this increased revenue is from their efforts. So the other $1.5 million would be invested in our employees, and that would be invested in two parts. Number one, there would be a roughly $680,000 cash contribution to the health insurance fund. And second, there would be roughly $820,000 allocated for one-time bonus pay to employees who meet certain criteria. Criteria such as having been employed with the county since October 1, 2012, and not been a part of any disciplinary proceedings during fiscal year 2013. And I feel that that is an appropriate and proper use of that $3 million. Number one, provide relief to the taxpayer, and number two, invest in our human capital and our employees. If the commissioners have any comments or anything they'd like to add to that?
So to clarify what that amount is per employee for full-time, one that wasn't disciplined during the year, it would be a $1,000 bonus. For the 2013 fiscal year, this is dealing with this year, plus the influx of the money into our health insurance, which will help buoy that up.
As Zach had come to us and talked about that, these monies were not known even prior to all the previous budget being determined, and that was said and it was published in the paper. So when we had this new information, these decisions were made, in fact, just today, because there was new revenue or more revenue than what was anticipated in 2013, and my perspective on it was that in 2013 there was no pay given because it didn't appear that there would be revenue for any pay increases in that budget cycle. And why the stipulation for the disciplinary action, and I believe that the motion stated on a disciplinary probation. Reason for that is if somebody's been put on a disciplinary probation, they have caused the county an issue that has been a problem for the supervisor. And I felt that that was important, that a positive contribution to the county means you didn't cause the county trouble as an employee. And that's the way that that was determined as far as if you've been put on probation or an individual as an employee, then there would be no bonus during that time frame for what you decided.
Let's see, I guess, again, in the efforts of this board to be as transparent as possible to the public, all these meetings are recorded, and anybody can listen to those meetings at any time. And this is a very difficult process. This whole budget effort and the way it was done this year, the fact that everyone is much more involved. Lots of items were contested among the board. We didn't all agree on how this should happen. But you can go back and so if there was a contested line item or a number, we would put it to a motion and a vote, and it was solved that way. So many times the votes we were all lined up. Sometimes we weren't, and so that's how we did it. But nothing was done on this budget that wasn't approved by 2 commissioners or more. So you can go back and listen to it. But you know, it's pretty hard when you're dealing with the public's tax dollars from commissioners from 3 different districts, and you've got the influence of loyal employees and taxpayers, clerks and controllers and department heads and other elected officials. You're not going to agree on everything, and we didn't, but we've got a good balanced budget and here in front of us. So Zach, are there other items you want to cover at this time?
For a point of clarification, the $1.5 million investment in our employees through the health insurance fund and the one-time bonus pay is scheduled to happen in fiscal year 2013. And that in no way affects what was scheduled to take place in 2014 with a merit pool allotment of between 2 and 4% per department.
All right, thank you very much, Zach. I see that the clerk may need to interject here. Chris Yamamoto, do you need to address the group? Zach will.
On the health insurance fund, the county is self-funded, and roughly 4 to 5 years ago, the balance in the health insurance fund was around $8 million. And we now find ourselves at a fund balance of $3.5 to $4 million. And over the course of those 4 years, there really, to my knowledge, if there's been any changes to the fund or the benefit program, they've been minimal. So the county has just been absorbing that loss to the tune of $1 million year over year over year. Something has to change with that fund. We cannot continue to lose $1 million a year in that fund. So there will be changes in premiums for spouses and families, and there will be changes in deductibles. It's a very difficult decision, but in order to protect the fund and ensure that we do have something available for our employees, those changes need to be made.
Perhaps we should take another minute or two and discuss how that happens. The county is self-insured, and there was over $8 million reserve that's due to large claims, and not changing the program, those reserves dropped considerably. So the trustees, there's a board in the county of the trustees that oversee these medical benefits. And it was their recommendation to the board. There wasn't multiple recommendations. There was one recommendation they brought forward, and the Board of County Commissioners supported the decision of the trustees to change those deductibles and the amounts. So the employees have benefited the past several years, or many years, from low deductibles and spousal benefits that they're not going to receive next year. It's going to cost them more. And it's still a very good medical program compared to what's out in the private sector and other, even counties, cities. We have an excellent medical program. And so I think it's being well managed, and I commend the trustees for stepping up and making the hard decisions that are going to keep this program in place. At the rate we were going, in another 2, 3, 4 years, it was going to be bankrupt, and they would simply go, the county would go out and buy a Blue Cross or Blue Shield or some other program that would have increased the cost to the employee immensely. Commissioner Alder, Commissioner Hanson, anything to add to that?
I think it's important to note that that board of trustees is made up of county employees that sit on that and came with that decision. So I guess what I would say, and I'm not one to take a cop out on any point, and part of that was my cop training. But the point is that that is the fellow employees that we all serve with here in Canyon County that made this decision and came with a recommendation as to what needed to happen to prevent bankruptcy in the fund for our health insurance. So you can come and talk to me or any, I know my fellow commissioners, but it would also be good to talk to the trustees, and we can get you the names of those individuals and they can tell you why we did what we did.
Okay, thank you very much, Craig. Zach, any other item you want to, or quick motor we need to get before we start taking public comment?
I would just encourage everyone to pay attention to page number 1 of the handout. On the expenditure budget, there is a $7 million increase from fiscal year 2013. But it's important to note that nearly $4 million of that increase is for capital expenditures of a one-time nature. There's also a $2 million increase for salaries and benefits. That would include 16 new or previously unfunded positions with a new judge headed to Canyon County. That's created a need for new positions. And as activity has increased in development services, that's created a need to refund positions that were previously unfunded. And additionally, on the other operating expenses, an increase of $1.2 million. $500,000 of that roughly is indigent expenses that we are required to pay. Over the past few years, that's one area, possibly the only area, that we've seen continued increases in spending is in our indigent department. And it's very important to note that we're able to do all that with over $1.5 million less in property tax. I look at a lot of budgets, I study a lot of budgets, and the first thing I look at is what's your property tax budget? And what has your property tax budget done over the past few years? County is funded by multiple sources of revenue, not just solely property tax. And it's very important for my chair to monitor actual levels of revenue. And as actual revenue has increased from fees, state revenues, we've been able to provide relief to the taxpayer to the tune of $1.5 million next year.
All right, thank you, Zach. So to kind of expound on that a little bit, let's talk about what you'll see on your tax notices that will come out. If you live in a school district that passed a supplemental levy, you may see some increase in your taxes, but you won't see an increase in your property taxes due to what Zach just explained. Your value of your home may be increasing. That may raise your assessment. That is market driven. It's not controlled by commissioners or anything but market sales that establish the values of your home or properties. The fact that we dropped $1.5 million, boy, I don't hear many counties doing that over the state, let alone here at Canyon County since I've been around here, and it's a very good thing. But again, somebody's going to find themselves in one of those time frames where they get assessed after a 3 or 4 or 5 year layoff, and all of a sudden their values go way up, and they're going to be upset. And a ditch company or a school district or a highway district or somebody's going to increase the tax to you. Just make sure that you look at each item as you go down through your tax assessment and give credit where it's due and pay attention to where those taxes are increased. And if you voted for some of these benefits, well, we all have that right, and I would encourage you all to vote no matter what you do. Okay, Zach. Commissioners, any other comment along that subject? Anything else to cover, Zach?
Not at the moment.
Okay. I think at this time then, we're going to, Commissioners, anything before we take public comment? We're going to open this up. This is a public hearing, and the first name, if you're not signed up, you're welcome to address the board or the group. The first name is Thomas Tippett. Mr. Tippett, would you come forward to the microphone, please? And please put your name and address on the record for us.
My name is Thomas Tippett, and I live at 1823 New Bateman Street here in Colorado.
Thank you.
And I guess coming early, that's why I'm first. Actually, I looked over the budget, and I just wanted to make a comment in support of the increase in the budget. I also work for the Sheriff's Office, and having worked previously for the Sheriff's Office and came back to work for the Sheriff's Office, I have seen a lot of improvement with the Sheriff's Office, and I think we have a dedicated group of people to work on both sides of the Sheriff's Office. And it's very difficult as an employee to look at other agencies that are offering much better compensation and say, no, I'm going to stick around with Canyon County. But we have a lot of people that are doing that, and so I think that this budget increases are reflecting that.
Thank you, Mr. Tippett. Next person signed up is Michelle Chadwick. Michelle, would you come forward? Put your name and address on the record for us, please.
Michelle Chadwick, 1915 Albany, Caldwell. I'm not asking for a change in the budget, but I do want to let the board know that in the last couple of days I've been in a training for the healthcare exchange, and there could be some dramatic changes, both either increases or decreases in the indigent budget. As Zach already mentioned, this is the one section of our budget that is without control and quite frankly very out of control. That is nothing that can be done at the county level. It is purely at the legislative level. But I felt it was only fair to let you know that once we hit January 1st, the exchange goes into effect. The exchange is only valid for those that are between 100 and 400% of the federal poverty level. The indigent fund and budget at the county level and the decisions we make have nothing to do with the federal poverty level, but those individuals that are most excited about this particular of the Affordable Care Act are those that are typically at 100% or less. Unfortunately, they're not eligible for any type of subsidies, and they will have absolutely no assistance. And so I would not be at all surprised to see some dramatic changes mid-budget year. And so I just wanted to let the board know that. Again, I'm not requesting any changes, but I did want to put that on the record that there may be some significant changes. Stand for questions if you have anything.
State your position.
On which part?
Here at the county is what he's asking.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm the indigent director.
Commissioner Alden.
I just wanted to add to what Michelle is telling us here today. I was at Southwest District Health yesterday, and they showed an example of a family of four, and one whose income is at $31,680. They become eligible for the exchange, and they get a premium that is paid for of $11,209, and their subsidy is $10,206. Their premium was $11,209. So what they actually have to pay out of pocket is only $979. But a family of four who makes $23,000 is ineligible for the subsidy. Their premium is $11,209, and they get zero subsidy. So their premiums half their income. And I'm asking myself, can this possibly be true? And so the problem is, this is where Medicaid expansion was supposed to come in for the states, and I'm not sure our legislature will consider the Medicaid expansion, but these people that get no subsidy would have received Medicaid for the entire family. But if Idaho doesn't expand that, then I think that's going to be up to you and I to take care of their medical needs if there's not something else. I thought maybe they had made a mistake when I saw this, and I took it to Michelle, and she said, no, that's exactly how it goes. So there is some concerns.
Michelle, if you would, what kind of financial effect, if the state doesn't step up and make this so, what kind of financial effect would it have on the county indigent budget?
Likely there would need to be additional positions created simply to process the applications, and then the county is responsible for every approved application up to $11,000 per application within a CAT year, within a rolling window. And so there are some very significant impacts upon Canyon County, depending upon what we see out of the legislature and how the general public, especially those that are at 100% of the federal poverty level and less, how they will respond to making some assumptions that they may potentially have insurance that they otherwise might not have. Just as a reminder, if we have an approval at the county level, that is a repayment, it is only a loan. And many of those individuals are under the assumption, the mistaken assumption, that it is free health care, and that is not the case.
Michelle, how many indigent applications were processed through Canyon County last year, let's say?
We had approximately 1,500.
And what do you think that number could be under a new scenario proposed where that is not funded? Would you care to make a guess?
I would guess it would probably increase by at least a fifth.
So you guys can start to see how important this is to the county's indigent budget in particular, as well as the CAT fund, which are, would you explain just take a minute, explain how the county indigent fund helps an indigent person, and then how it's paid by the CAT fund and where that's funded?
The CAT fund is funded by the state's general fund. The county indigent fund is property taxes only. An individual, the way that you determine if someone is eligible for assistance at the county level is you take the cost of the medical bills at the full rack rate, so whatever the full amount that the hospital or the provider is charging, dividing that by 60 months, and then you compare that amount versus their disposable or discretionary income. And then if they can make the payment, then they're not indigent. If they can't, then that is, again, the county's responsibility to pay the first $11,000. And then the balance of that goes to the state, to the catastrophic fund. Both the state and the county only pay out at the Medicaid rate. And so then the individual is responsible for repaying the county and the state at that Medicaid rate.
All right, thank you very much, Michelle. Any other questions for Michelle? I would take a second here to explain one more part of this indigent program. When I first came in the office several years ago, an appendectomy would come through for $9,000, $10,000, $11,000. We're watching appendectomies come through now for $27,000. In 7 years, it has tripled the cost to us to pay those kind of operations. That's just one example that really comes to mind. So it's frustrating. The next person signed up is Kelly Pound. Would Kelly come up? Hi, Kelly. Name and address on the record for us, please.
Kelly Pound, 2015, East Locust Lane, Nampa, Idaho. I've been employed with Canyon County for over almost 10 years now, and I just wanted to express my gratitude for your consideration for the employee benefit packages, and just to reiterate, as Mr. Tippett did, that we would appreciate consideration for longevity incentives for the employees.
Thank you, Kelly. Next name is Jerem Wagner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. It's good to be here tonight. I guess as a non-county employee, I would also like to commend you on providing that bonus to your employees. You do have fantastic employees down here at the county. Even the guy behind the computer there's not bad. But I do commend you on that because they should be rewarded, and it's nice to see that you're doing that. So it's nice, I think, to hear that from a non-county employee that we also support that and commend you on that. I'm here tonight actually representing the Caldwell Historical Society. They had put a request before you regarding the $90,500 that's set aside for the historical societies in the county. They had put a request in for $20,000 of that money. So just here to express their desire for that money, what they wish to do with it. Last year you had awarded them with $2,000. And they took that and used that to create the Caldwell Historic District signs. I'm sure the signage that you've seen around town have done a great job with that. And with the money for this year, they wish to expand, improve events like the museum, which is down at Memorial Park. That museum was actually built in the 1930s, started by George Crookham, actually, and named after a former commissioner, Mr. C.M. Van Slyke, who that's named after. So the entire $20,000 is to be used for actual projects, not to be used to pay for employees or anything like that, but to renovate the cabins that are down there, renovate the machinery, create a more enjoyable place to come. We hope to bring more school children down there. We hope to incorporate Boy Scouts or possible Eagle Scout projects and working on the equipment to save money so we can make full use of that dollar. So just a request for that, to consider that and take that into consideration when you're deciding how to divvy up that money.
Okay. In just a second, Commissioner Alder is going to share some of that information with us. But before that, I want to tell you how this has worked in the past. Again, there was the Canyon County Historical, let's see, what is the official name? You guys got that? Society in Nampa. I think it was Society. And, they were able to request those funds, and over the years gathered up a significant amount of that. Well, last year we decided as a board to open that up to requests from across the valley for historical efforts. So at that point, other places like Caldwell, Parma, Notice, Greenleaf, Middleton, other historical efforts were recognized by the board. In the meantime, a historical committee has been set up as per a code that's set with qualified individuals who took all the requests this year for that 90+ thousand and made a recommendation to the board. So now I'm going to let Commissioner Alder cover how the committee came back with recommendations to the board.
Okay, there's $90,000 to give out. The requests were $197,000. So obviously that made it very difficult. But the Historic Preservation Committee came back with a determination as to how we should do that. So for the Canyon County Historical Society, it's $10,000. For the Notice Community Museum, they asked for $10,100. They will receive $10,000. Old Fort Boise didn't ask for any, and we didn't give them any. And neither did Middleton. And the Caldwell Historical Society, as you mentioned, asked for 20, and we gave them 10. Notice, 4570, and we did give them 5,000 for their historical society and what they were doing. All of these, none of this is, like you say, none of it's for personnel. It is for historical purposes and preservation. The American Legion in Nampa came in and asked for $28,370. Their building is on the historic list, and it's falling apart, and they don't have a lot of money. And so the Nampa American Legion will receive $10,000. The Melba Valley Historical Society came in. They asked for $11,500. We were just notified today that they have their building in. It's the old IFFO hall, if you've ever been out there, the Rebecca's Lodge, and they have turned that over to the Melba Historical Society, and that is a historic building as well. It used to be a hotel long before my time. Okay. Southwest Idaho RC&D had requested $12,500. We did not give them any award because we feel like there's a levy out there for the parks and whatnot that they could go to get money. The Nampa Library, friends of the Nampa Library came in and asked for $14,550. We awarded them $10,000, but to tell you why, it is to preserve historical newspapers that had gone out throughout the county for many, many, many years, and they needed a means whereby they could preserve it. And so I think that all of these requests, and they will have to sign a paper and let us know exactly what they're going to accomplish, and then come back and show us what they have done. If you're totaling it up, it's about $75,000. And so that leaves a little money in our fund. And the purpose of that money is if somebody has an overrun or desperately needs to ask for more money or another grant, they could always come back. Or if there was an emergency of some kind on one of these, in these facilities that they needed some help immediately, then they could again make a request and some money would be there for that purpose. So I know it's not what everybody wanted, but it certainly gives them a good start to preserve the great history of Canyon County. And there's always next year.
How much was Melvin? Sorry.
And it was $10,000 as well.
Thank you, Commissioner. 2 points here I want to emphasize. Number one, the reserve was recommended by the Historical Preservation Committee. It wasn't a decision by the board that wasn't already endorsed by that committee. And they're made up of doctors of history, archaeologists. Tom, I should have you come up and name all the kinds of people that sit on this board, but they are very, very history. They are experts in the fields of history, and we respect their efforts and thank all those people for serving on that board. So it's with their recommendation we approved this $15,000 in reserve for an emergency situation where we might not otherwise be able to budget any dollars or give out any monies. The other point I want to make is the Friends of Nampa Library is much different than the Nampa Library. It's a 501c3 that they're not building libraries. They're trying to preserve the historical documents and newspapers and things that are in their grasp and their efforts and their sites, and we're really pleased that they stepped up. A lot of these other things were for handicap bathrooms, plumbing, roof repairs, things like that. That's what we want this money to go for, and not for a salary for somebody. All right, and I think we covered that quite thoroughly, didn't we, Commissioners? Okay. There are no other names signed up here. Is there anyone else that wishes to address the board at this time on the 2014 budget? No one's stepping forward or raising their hands, so that will close the public request or comment period of this meeting. Commissioners, anything else that we need to take care of at this time?
I just think it's really beneficial to know that that when that extra $3 million came in, I can't think of anything better than to relieve each one of us. We're all property owners. You live in Canyon County, that's property relief, and $1.5 million going in to reduce the property tax is a great thing. And putting $1.5 million into you, I think is important. So that has nothing to do with this budget. That's all about 2013 as far as that part is concerned. But I'm going to make a motion that we go ahead and resolve to adopt at this public hearing the 2014 fiscal budget in the amount of $73,862,570 and $302,109 for Canyon County Pest Control District, and a budget of $12,000 for the Melba Gulf District. And that should total the $74,176,679, and that's my motion.
Make it easy, I'll second that.
Motion is second to approve Canyon County fiscal year 2014 budget. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous across this board, and that will be the budget going into 2014. Commissioners, thank you very much. Staff, account controller, clerk Yamamoto, every department head that put their budget together, thank you very much. Again, this was not the easiest budget we went through because of the changing process, but I think it was important. It's transparent. Again, you want to hear how any of this rolled out, request the audio, and it's available to the public, and that will complete this meeting. Thank you all for attending.